Good evening and welcome to the Common Council meeting for October 8th, 2013. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Williams.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Fernsler.
Here.
Anderson.
Present.
Hanson.
Present.
Jarvis. Sedlacek.
Present.
Markham.
Here.
Let the record show we have a quorum for a Common Council meeting. Please stand for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the list of items for consideration on the consent agenda. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved. Second, Alder Nelson.
We have a first and a second to approve the list of items on it for consideration on the consent agenda. Item number 7, any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, this item D should probably be removed from there. Oh, for 2014, I'm sorry, I thought that was for this year.
I was gonna say, he just had that.
Yeah, I thought that too.
I
They're
know.
planning ahead then, right? Yeah.
Well, it was a big success, I guess. Okay. Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll for approving the consent agenda, item number 7.
Markham.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 4 is the audience portion where we invite the audience to sign in, be recognized by the chair, and tell us what's on your mind. That's where you get to talk and we get to listen. And tonight, someone who hasn't spoken before, Bill Emming. Oh, you did speak before. Oh, okay. Oh, that's just a photocopy, I'm sorry.
Anyway, just wanted to let council and everyone in the community know that it's leaf season again and that you can start putting your leaves out on the curb. We'll be running around with one truck, and until we can't keep up with that one, then we'll go out with 2. So, and we'll be picking up leaves until, I was looking like November 22nd. I think Thanksgiving is right in there, so right around that time. So, that's it. Thank you.
Sounds good, thank you. Item 5, update from WPPI. It is indeed a pleasure for me to introduce Mike Peters, the CEO of WPPI Energy. I had the occasion to meet Mike when he came in as CEO, and I think we have a lot to learn and appreciate from Mike and his leadership ability. And welcome to Plymouth, Wisconsin.
Nice to be here. Thank you, Mayor. I'll take about 20 minutes of your time and give you an update on WPPI Energy, your wholesale power supplier, and would definitely appreciate any questions that you might have as we go through the presentation. But, WPPI was created in 1980, and our mission at that time and continues to be a reliable, long-term wholesale power supplier for our members and to provide services that you would not be able to do on your own or do as effectively on your own. So with that in mind, we have structured an organization that is membership driven. We have 51 members in 3 states, and we have a board of directors of representing each of those individual member utilities, and Brian sits on our board now, and we welcome his participation on the board. The collectively, to give you a concept of a perception of the size of WPPI, when we look at all of our members, we serve about 200,000 meters collectively when you look at our individual members combined. That makes us slightly bigger than MG&E as a utility. So when you look at WPPI and all of our members combined, we're large enough to do things that our individual member utilities would not be able to do on their own. And that's really the impetus behind having a joint action agency. It gives you access to power supply and services that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. We have a membership structure with that 51-member board. They elect an executive committee that meets every month, acts more like a council would act or a board of directors would act for an organization. We have 11 members on our executive committee, and as you know, John McKinnon served on that for a number of years. We also have 6 different advisory committees that have representatives that don't necessarily sit on the board. They might be an employee of one of our member utilities, but these advisory committees work with our staff and give us direction on different policy issues or different programs that we're providing, such as Information Technology Advisory Committee or Distribution Services Advisory Committee. But we really rely heavily on input from our members to give us direction on where our program should go, so that we are and can be responsive to members with those programs and watch the cost of those programs and the usefulness of those programs to our membership. You know, we, Plymouth, as much as any other of our members, really understands the value of your municipally owned utility, and obviously I don't need to go through those statistics with you, but I just commend you on your operation since 1901 and providing first-class service to your members in a very large area outside the city limits as well. I think Plymouth serves as much outside the city limits as any of our member utilities do, and I know that presents some challenges to you as well. We focus, as a joint action agency, we focus on three primary areas. One, obviously, is power supply. That's why we were created. But from that, we've grown into a services organization. We've done customer surveys, basically our customers being our member utilities. And your satisfaction with WPPI is directly related with your satisfaction of the services that we offer. I think it's gotten to a point where our members just, you know, they take the power supply side for granted. That's there, that's what we do, but it's the services that really drive your level of satisfaction with the organization. We offer almost 40 different unique services to our members, from billing software support, customer information services, programs for your customers like RFP for energy efficiency programs, which we've worked with a number of your large customers on energy efficiency programs specifically to help them reduce their energy bill. And all that comes through our services side. Then we've also become an advocacy organization. One of the things that we do is we work with MEUW, the Trade Association for the Municipal Utilities, on legislative contacts, developing relationships with legislative offices, so that when there's policy issues that affect us and our members, we can advocate on their behalf. I've been in the utility industry for 30 years, and I have been back to DC too many times to count. But I can tell you one of the things that I saw, and the mayor's seen this firsthand, is one of the most effective lobbying groups I've seen anywhere is when you have a dozen or 15 mayors go into our senator's office in DC and tell them this is what we need from you. They get listened to. And that's a credit to our leadership at the local level and their willingness to participate in those trips to DC. They do pay benefits long-term for us. It allows us and APPA then to follow up with the legislative and congressional offices and staff and advocate for us. I mean, obviously our mission is to represent our member utilities and make sure whatever rules that they come up with in DC or in Madison are to the benefit of our member utilities. So that grassroots advocacy is really important to us. Give you an idea of our budget, we're about $475 million a year in annual revenue. That's the bulk of that obviously is for power supply. We also have debt service that's the debt on our assets that we own. We own pieces of a number of power plants. We also own a couple of gas-fired plants outright. Our two biggest assets are the Elm Road Generating Station. Did anybody have a chance to go on the tour of that? We did that last year. If you ever want an interesting tour of a power plant, let us know. We'd be happy to arrange for you to go to the Elm Road Generating Station. It's a state-of-the-art power plant. It went online, the first unit in 2010 and the second unit in 2011. We get about 10 to 15% of our total energy out of that plant now, and it's going to provide service for us for probably 50 years. But it is a state-of-the-art coal-fired power plant. The other coal plant that we have an interest in is in Cohasset, Minnesota, and it's the Boswell Generating Station. That was one of the earliest assets that we bought into. We've been in that asset for about 20 years now. We are going to be doing an environmental retrofit on that plant. EPA regulations that require us to improve the cleanup of the mercury emissions out of that plant, as well as particulate matter. That's the sooty stuff that comes out of a coal plant. They've got standards on what you have to scrub that down to. And we've got a $400 million project that we're doing in partnership with Minnesota Power. They've already started construction. That plant will stay online all the way up until about 2 months at the end of the construction period, where they'll shut it off and then tie the back-end emissions control technology into the plant itself and then turn it back on. Our share of that cost is about $95 million, and we get about 110 megawatts of generation out of that plant. To give you an idea, when we bought into that plant 20 years ago, it cost us about $100 million to buy into that 20% ownership of the plant, and we're going to spend $100 million now to do the environmental retrofit. We went and obviously we did the economic analysis of that plant and to make sure that was the right decision for us. We looked at building a new gas plant or buying into a gas plant or other options. And even after we do the environmental retrofit on this plant, it will be our lowest cost baseload resource. And after this retrofit, we anticipate 20 to 30 years of continued life out of that plant. So we still believe it's a very good option for us going forward. The one area of our budget that our executive committee keeps a real tight control over is our administrative and general expenses. These are pretty much everything other than power supply costs, like staff salaries, the programs that we provide to our member utilities, the energy efficiency programs, renewable energy programs, those types of things are under our A&G budget. If you look at where we were at for 2013, our A&G budget is pretty comparable and has remained relatively flat since 2008. And so we have done all we can really to try and hold the line on our A&G budget. And one of the exercises we put our executive committee through 2 years ago is we spent staff time, we probably spent about 40 hours looking at every one of our services that we provide, the cost of the service, and the usefulness of that service to our members. And we gauged that by how many members were using the service and how often they did that. We prepared that information, shared that with the executive committee, and they literally spent hours going through each one of those services. And their intent was to make sure that our services are being used by our members and that they're being cost effective. And they were looking to see if there was any areas that we could cut. They made some decisions to trim some of the budget last year, but we did not eliminate any of the services. We did trim some of them back, but we did not eliminate them. But I can tell you that the executive committee does a really good job of watching that administrative and general budget. Our power supply portfolio, you can think of it as you would your retirement portfolio. You know, you don't want all of your retirement in one stock. You want a diversified portfolio. And so since we can't guess what the cheap fuel is going to be 10 years from today, we try to have a balanced portfolio. We have coal, we have natural gas, we have a nice slice of nuclear energy now since we added the Point Beach contract in 2011. We have renewables, and then we have energy efficiency and demand response. Demand response, I'll give you an example of that program. We have a couple of very large customers that we pay them a little bit each month, and then in peak times during the year, if we need the additional generating capacity, we can ask them to curtail their load and actually reduce their usage. For us, it's a win-win, that type of a program. It pays that customer a little bit of money each month. It's actually cheaper than us owning a gas peaking plant. That customer gets a little bit of money out of it, so it helps them reduce their energy bill, and the local utility gets credit for that as well. So that's an idea or an example of demand response type planning. Our sales to members has been relatively flat. You can see that graph with shows our sales, gigawatt hour sales to members. And it's been pretty flat over the last several years. We really took a dip in 2009 and have been slowly climbing back out of that recessionary dip that we took. We are projecting that our sales in 2013 and 14 will be flat, relatively equal to where we were at in 2012. For a utility, that does put pressure on us for our rates. We have contracts that, you know, if you think about the expenses for any type of an organization, there's inflationary pressure each year. And we do have some contracts that have automatic escalation clauses. They might add 1% to the cost. Our Point Beach contract adds about 2% each year to the cost of that. So that puts upward pressure on us. If our sales continue to grow, that obviously means we have more kilowatt hours to spread those costs, and it helps us maintain flat rates. If our sales are flat, obviously, as those costs go up, then that puts pressure on our rates. I can tell you the last 2 years, our rate increase, budget-to-budget comparison has been 2% or less to our members. We looked at preliminary budget numbers, and we'll be sharing those with our executive committee in November and then our board in December. But right now, our projected budget-to-budget rate increase for 2014 is less than 1%. And that's despite the pressures that we have on some of our contracts that would raise them. We also project in 2015 that it'll probably be about 2%. We do see some rate pressure coming on in 2016 because of the, I talked about the environmental retrofit, that $90 to $100 million expense. We've obviously did bond financing for that, and the full cost of that financing will hit our rates in 2016 and 17. That project alone will add about 2.5% increase to our rates. So if our average increase is 2% and you throw another 2.5%, we're looking at a 4.5% increase out into 2016. If our sales go up, we can mitigate that, obviously, but we obviously are going to do everything we can to keep those rates down. I gave you a picture of our diversified fuel mix, where we're at today. Substantial amount of coal and nuclear, followed by natural gas and renewables. We have a number of contracts that we have right now that expire in 2017 for about combined, it's about 150 megawatts of generating capacity. And so we're looking at options right now of how we would fill in that white space on that pie chart that says new resources. We're looking at contract options. We do have the option to extend those contracts that we have, but that may not be the lowest cost option for us. We're also looking at a couple of assets that we could buy into to provide that. We also have the option of leaving some of that open and buying from the marketplace. The Mid-Continent supply area, it used to be the Midwest ISO Independent System Operator, basically is a multi-state market where utilities sell capacity and energy into the market and you can buy back out of that market. But it's a one-year capacity market, so we could leave space open and not actually have a contract or a resource and just buy from the marketplace if we need to, as we look for options. One of the things we spent a lot of time on over the last probably 6 or 8 years is looking at our emissions profile for greenhouse gases. And regardless of your politics, there is definitely a pressure over the last probably 8 years to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, both domestically and internationally. So we looked at it from a business standpoint, and we wanted to find cost-effective ways to reduce our emissions, and we've done a number of things. One is energy efficiency programs, demand response programs, renewable energy program, and quite frankly, the Point Beach contract is really what drove a significant reduction in our emissions profile when we entered into that contract in 2011. So right now, when you look at our emissions profile, we are the lowest in the state as far as greenhouse gases. What that does for us is if and when there's a tax on emissions, or if there's a cap and trade program for greenhouse gas emissions, it's going to have the least effect on us compared to every other wholesale power supplier or retail supplier in the state. And so from our standpoint, yeah, it may add costs to us, but nowhere near what it's going to add to some of the other utilities in the state. And that's going to put us in a very good position competitively going forward. So we continue to look at this issue, but we definitely look at it from an eye of cost. If it's something that we can do that's cost effective, we're going to definitely take a look at it. If it's going to add a premium to our rates, we've pretty much drawn the line, not gone down that path yet. So we've looked for cost effective ways to reduce our emissions. Future years, as I said, with the rate pressure and our sales being flat, we're going to see that to start impacting us in 2015 and 2016. There's also been there's been significant increase in transmission costs. Probably 10 years ago, transmission costs made up about 4 or 5% of our wholesale cost to our members. Today, it's about 13% of our cost to members is transmission. ATC just released their 10-year construction plan, and they probably have about $1.5 billion to $2 billion worth of projects over the next 10 years, and obviously that shows up in our rates. We're looking for ways to leverage our investment in that transmission. If we own the transmission, we get it at our cost, which is lower than if we paid an investor-owned utility for that transmission, because one, we're not for profit. Second, we have a lower debt structure than a investor-owned utility would have. And so that if we can own a piece of the transmission like we do through ATC, or we just recently bought into some transmission on the west side of the state, we get it at our cost, which is the lowest cost to provide that transmission. So part of the things that we're looking at over the next couple of years is how much transmission should we have in our portfolio, and how do we finance those investments. Obviously, then there's just a lot of unknowns. As I said, I can't tell you what 10 years from now what the best choice is going to be today, so we try to maintain that diversified portfolio. I talked a little bit about the advocacy efforts. I'd like to skip past and talk to you about some of the service things that we've been doing. And one in particular, we spent a lot of time over the last 3 or 4 years looking at technology at the customer level. The metering technology, the billing and customer information service technology, the software, and then the backbone of a system called the meter data management system, which is a very elaborate piece of software that can take all of this data that you're getting from customer usage data from the metering and can actually generate reports and give you detailed information that we, quite frankly, can't do today. But we had a member committee that looked at all the metering options for advanced metering technology and has selected 2 types of meters that our members could use and would be integrated into this system. They looked at the 2 types of customer information software systems that we provide, and those have been fully integrated into the system. And then we purchased a meter data management software package. The cost of that package is about $2 million. So if you think about it from the standpoint of, this isn't something you go into, Best Buy and take off the shelf and take home. This is a very sophisticated software package. Takes a lot of staff time and training to be able to fully utilize that program. But it was a $2 million investment on our part. What that now allows our members, as they migrate from the current metering technology to the advanced metering infrastructure, it allows them access to technology that is as state-of-the-art as any investor-owned utility in the state of the country. So you will have the capability when you migrate to that type of technology to get data that you can't get today. The cost to run your system, who's driving those costs, is it the residential, commercial, industrial loads, so that you'll have better data when you do rate cases. You'll be able to look at customers' usage. If a customer calls in with a high bill complaint, you literally can look at their usage in 15-minute increments over the last 6 months, and you can see where there's spikes. You can also find billing problems. We can detect when there's metering errors, and we've already done that recently with one of our member utilities. Their losses were very high. We pulled the information for that particular utility, and one of our staff went through and figured out literally where the metering error was taking place, and they were able to go out and repair that and fix that situation. And then they had the information to correct the billing going forward. That's something that's not capable unless you have this type of technology. We now have 6 members that are fully integrated into this system. We developed the system so that over a 10-year period, each of our member utilities could decide when they were ready to come onto it. Because we recognize with 51 members, you're all over the place with respect to where you're at with your metering technology. And we didn't want to have a system that all 51 members had to go to on day one. Quite frankly, we couldn't handle all 51 showing up on day one saying we're ready to go. We're doing about 3 or 4 of these a year. And so over the course of 10 years, we'll be able to get to all of our members when they're ready to do this. So there's some data in there for hardcore utility geeks. This is the kind of load profile information that you can get out of this system that shows literally you can see the days of the weeks, and you can see the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, and where they peak. But each one of these peaks represents the usage for that large customer class, residential, commercial, industrial, and the various large industrial classes. So you can see who's driving your cost structure, and when you do your rate cases, we can now generate data with respect to your costs in a half a day. What normally today would take a week to pull all the data and do all the cost of service study work. So with this type of technology, you'll have a lot better information. That's about 21 minutes. But there's a lot of information I know I dumped on you, but I'd appreciate it if you had any questions or concerns or comments. I'd be happy to respond to those. Yeah, Jim.
I thought the Point Beach was closing down.
That's the Kewanee nuclear plant. That's Kewanee, and it has closed down.
Oh.
They're doing the decommissioning right now. Yeah, Point Beach is south, they're not too far apart, they're very close.
That's why.
Point Beach really, and you know, the dynamics of those two plants, Kewanee was a single unit, and Point Beach is a dual unit, so you had some economies of scale when you're operating that plant. Basically, it got to a point where Kewanee was more expensive than the marketplace or natural gas-powered energy would be, and the owners of that plant basically couldn't find anybody to sign a long-term contract with it. And they were losing money when they were selling into the marketplace because natural gas right now is setting the price for the most part. Sometimes it's coal, but with gas prices at or below $4, it usually drives the price of energy. But they couldn't find a long-term buyer for the output of that plant. And as a merchant generator, they're not going to lose money, so they made a decision to take the write-off and shut the plant down. It was pretty devastating to that part of the state, obviously. We looked at options of, you know, we probably would have been willing to buy 100 megawatts of that, out of that plant, but it's a 550 megawatt plant. So 100 megawatts from us wasn't going to be enough to keep it open. We did call other utilities in the area and tried to feel whether or not there'd be other interest, if there was enough of us to go together. But there wasn't, so that plant is shutting down. Will that plant ever come back online? My guess is that it never will. It will be shut down and be decommissioned. So,
Good question. Follow?
One more, in terms of the advanced metering,
right.
are there issues, is that using wireless, or is that just advanced metering on each house and having, how,
This type of metering technology can use, it's wireless technology. There's a couple types you can do. You can collect the data through cell phone. You can collect the data through a hard wire, or you can collect the data through a collector, which actually is a meter that's wired into the system, and it receives information from all the other meters in that general area. Or you can have a tower that literally sends out a signal and reads it. Most of, you know, the municipal utilities with the concentrated service areas that have, you know, the water tower has been a good option where they can put the antenna on top of the water tower and get pretty much the entire footprint. So they use a, you know, radio wave technology in order to get the meter reads. But they're getting a reading out of that meter. It'll collect data every 15 minutes on the actual usage, and then you'll collect that. You can collect it whenever you want, but typically, you know, once a month, you'll actually pull that data into the system.
are there issues, somewhere I heard something about possible problems with the wireless systems?
Yeah, there
because
was-
people are afraid of having
Right,
these waves of whatever sort
Right.
going out
There
through their
was
houses
there
and so
was some, you know, alarm bells that had been raised in a couple of states, a number of states that have looked at this type of technology. Quite frankly, the radio frequencies of these meters, it's less than your exposure would be for a microwave oven in your house, a cell phone to your ear, or even a baby monitor in a baby's bedroom. So the radio frequency issue has been looked at by a number of states. Michigan just did a very thorough review of it for their utilities that were moving forward with this, and they found that there was no risk to health, human health at all. And so they have continued to go forward. Now, some utilities, recognizing that some people still have an aversion to this type of technology, whether it's founded or not, they've allowed some customers to opt out, but there's a cost for that. You know, obviously, if the utility has to maintain types of metering technology and they're not getting all the data, plus they may have to send a crew out to do a meter read, there's costs associated with that. These utility members of WPPI that have put the systems in, they did not have opt-out options for their customers. So all of their customers are in the program.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for
Mayor,
taking
thank
the
you.
time to
Well, I appreciate you giving
come
me
to
the time.
cheese
I know-
capital of the world, and we always enjoy an update on what energy costs are doing and what you're doing for us on our behalf.
Well,
So
and
thank
we
you.
appreciate your support and partnership, but obviously, if there's anything we can do to help you, and help your customer base, you know how to get a hold of us. So, thank
Good.
you.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is number 6, ordinances Number 10, an ordinance amending section 13-1-105 paren G, prohibited signs for construction sites, the municipal code of the city of Plymouth. And I'll call on Alderman Sean Markham for a comment. Purpose of this is to refer this to the Plan Commission for a, I believe, a public hearing. Would I be correct in saying that? Correct? Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, this has just come to my attention. I've had a couple of folks ask me about it, and I spent a little time talking to our building inspector about it. And then I asked Brian whether it was unusual to have an ordinance to not allow any kind of signs at all. Let's say you're putting a roof on your house, the roofer can't put a sign in the yard saying it's his roofing company. I think to be business friendly and letting our local businesses put signs in somebody's yard if you're getting your kitchen remodeled or a new roof on, I think is a good idea, as long as the sign's not there too long. And I'd just like the Plan Commission to take a look at it and see if they would be willing to take a look and change it.
Certainly. I think that is a reasonable approach, and certainly at a public hearing, which the Plan Commission will conduct, then that can solicit comments from the public as well, and see how they feel about that. So with no objection, the chair will refer this to the Plan Commission at the, or do we need a motion for that? Alderperson Hanson, motion? Okay, chair will entertain a motion to refer this to Plan Commission, and that would be, Pete, the November 3rd?
Something like that, first Thursday of the month.
First Thursday in November. Okay.
So moved, Alder Anderson.
Second, Alder Markham.
We have a first and a second to refer this to the November Plan Commission meeting. Any discussion? Alderman Sizlacek.
In this ordinance that's been written up, I'm just wondering, the number of days, does that, it goes to the Plan Commission, and whatever number of days that they might have, does that do we need to have a discussion on that now? Or when it comes back, even though they might say 3 days, can we have that discussion and change whatever they might come up in terms of a number of days?
The Plan Commission would recommend the ordinance, and certainly at that point, the council can change the ordinance that's recommended.
Does it need to go back to
And
them, though?
no, you're the
Okay.
final approval authority.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is that correct?
That is correct. And at that point, you have a couple of different options. If the council decides to change the language, then you could either then refer back to the Plan Commission for an additional recommendation on the changed language. Otherwise, if you decide to approve something other than what's been recommended by the Plan Commission, your ordinances do require that supermajority. And I believe it's 3/4 of the council.
Correct. So we would have to make any changes by a 6-2 vote or greater. But it would not have to go back to Plan Commission.
If it was a 6-2.
Correct.
Because as I look at what's written here, and it says permitted for up to 30 days after project completion in residential zones or residential buildings. I mean, I like this idea. I think, you have a company that comes in and they do some work, but I think 30 days after is way too long. We could end up with signs, with the number of projects, just the plumbing companies. They came in and did a project, a one-day project, at my house. That sign could be there 30 days. Well, then they could be the neighbor's house, and streets could be lined with them. And I just think that to say 30 days, that's an awful long time. I don't know if it's 2 days, 3 days, 10 days, but
Maybe a comment from our building inspector here on what maybe you've seen, and I would assume that what we're looking at here is a amended version of a existing city ordinance that you've kind of had some input on?
No,
Or
I was just
you
a
haven't.
witness. I was just a
That,
witness. I
that's,
didn't-
that's where I'm coming with this. Where are we coming with these suggested changes?
Well, we didn't have an ordinance regulating these signs, and it was abused, and so I don't know if it was necessarily an overreaction, but it was just cut off clean. And from the time that they were disallowed to today, I get constant complaints, and I just tell them, I'm sorry, and now we're addressing it. I always, encourage contractors to come and see our alderpersons, but it hasn't happened, and I don't know if this is the right time, but your comment, Alderman Sedlacek, kind of prompted a thought that maybe we should draft something in there that these signs are allowed when it is incorporated with a permitted activity. Because if, let's say, the plumber stopped at the mayor's house to fix a leaky faucet, he sticks his sign in there for 30 days, I don't know that that's necessarily the intent of
That's a good
what we're
comment,
trying to
yeah.
address.
Yeah.
But it incorporated with a permit, if you've got a building permit,
Right.
go ahead, put your sign out there, show everybody where you're working, and it was just a thought, I don't know if now is the time to discuss this.
Well, I think it is, because I think that whatever we send to them is gonna kind of affect their discussion and what they send back. Because if we don't bring this up, they're gonna say 30 days, well, then we need a 6 to 2, and I don't know if we get a 6 to 2.
Yeah, and the way it's written, and I don't have a copy in front of me, but in reading the draft, it just allows them in 1 and 2 family
Right.
settings, and it's like, like you pointed out, this could look like a campaign.
Alderman Fernsler?
Yeah, speak some background on this. 3 or 4 years ago, we did away with the signs. We had signs, we had them, or people could put them up in their yards, and they were good. Then Vintage Neighborhood come along. Everybody was building houses out there. They had contractors and electricians and everybody. Where did they put their signs? On one lot, on Pleasant View, and there was 100 signs, and nobody ever took them down. So the only way we could get them to take it down was to cancel the sign ordinance. So that's the reason the sign ordinance was taken down. Now, this ordinance here comes up, it doesn't say where the signs are gonna be, doesn't say who is gonna enforce this, this rule. So, I mean, we're still out in the middle of the pasture with this.
Yeah, and you could, I guess, throw in some verbiage, that it has to be on the site where you're working, or the work has been performed.
That's right.
Tied in with, and I guess I don't mind making the comment that if you tie this in with a permit, that may even encourage some activity that isn't, normally guys aren't getting permits, actually get a permit so they can put their sign out. It's a win-win.
I think that these are certainly good comments, and we look for those to come to the public hearing as well. Attorney Feber?
Mr. Mayor, I just make one additional comment, and certainly the building inspector can speak to this as well, but I think that if the language is the up to 30 days after project completion, I think that creates some enforcement problems, because I don't know that the building inspector will actually know when that project is completed. So if the council is looking at alternate language, that would be my suggestion.
Anybody else? Good comments. You have the chair and Alderman Nelson on the Plan Commission. I'm sure we've both taken notes, and we will relay that to the plan commission at a proper time. Pete?
Now, just in something that was mentioned earlier, if the draft isn't altered to incorporate some of the comments this evening and it goes to the plan commission, the plan commission alters it and sends it back in a different manner, does then that take,
That's, whatever they send us, if we want to override it at 6-2.
okay?
If they don't make a decision, which they did in the recent past, and sent it back with a tie, then they put it back in council's position, and then there is no 6-2, because there was no recommendation. And we had that just recently. So there's a number of variables that could come out of the plan commission, and we'll have to see what action takes place. Alderman Hanson.
If we're gonna send it to the plan commission, we should have it in order when we send it to them. Because if we send them with these comments and just send it like it is, we corrected what we want to have done in it. And so my suggestion might be, we should look at it as a committee someplace along the line, or 3 alders take a look at it, refer it, lay it on the table, 3 alders look at it and bring it back or something like that. But if we send it like it is, then they can regroup it what it is. We have all our discussion right now hasn't meant anything. So we can amend it now. Yeah, and we can amend it now any way you want to amend it now, or not pass it too to go to.
But that's what the public hearing is for, too. I mean, that's why you have the public hearing, exactly. So, do I use the word, this is only a sample, this isn't in concrete? Is that a proper interpretation?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is not the finished ordinance.
Correct.
I mean, sitting on the plan commission, I wouldn't think this is finished coming to us. And so they wouldn't necessarily approve this, but if they did, certainly you have the chance to amend it. Clerk Huberty?
Just so you're clear, the public hearing will be at the council meeting, not at the plan commission.
That's correct.
Okay, correct. Thank you, that's right. There'll be input generated. Could be the same thing that they did a few months back, and it just gets kicked to council because we have the ultimate rule.
Mr. Mayor, would it be accurate to say that maybe we'll add language that there has to be some sort of permit pulled? And that I can add that in here, and then we can get it to the plan commission for discussion and recommendation on what, how they view it.
I think that would be
The day
appropriate.
thing, I think we could be here a long time.
Yeah, I think that
30
would be
days, 15
appropriate.
days versus-
We're developing this. Alderman Zlotchek.
I guess I would like to make an amendment to have it be sent to the plan commission, that it be for permitted projects, that the sign be on the actual construction site, and it be for up to 10 days after project completion.
To use those as guidelines in developing the ordinance.
Sure.
Now I have to back up. Parliamentarian.
You can just
Clerk Huberty, who had the first and second?
he can just move it, amend it, and pass amendment.
Anderson and Markham.
Anderson, okay, so that was 2 different people. Okay, I was just trying to, okay. So do we have a second to the amendment to the motion? Okay, we have a second, Alderman Nelson, to the motion to amend the original motion to include the verbiage on-site with permitted use, that's the right word, and
10 days.
not to exceed 10 days. Everybody understand the amendment to the motion? Clerk
I
Huberty.
do understand, but also Attorney Fever said that, she said there's issues with project completion, determining when the project is complete.
Pete,
Brian and I kind of had a discussion that we have to give some amount of time, whether it's a day or 30 days, to just have a point of reference. And then once that goes beyond however grossly it's violated, then we have a point of reference for citations or some type of action.
I guess I would comment, I mean, I guess if we're tying it back to the building permit, we're looking at what's being done, either the plumbing work or the painting or whatever. Or roof or whatever is done, it's, you know, if it's done, you know, generally, you'll be able to some kind of track that, but if it's 10 days or 30 days, there's no way city staff's gonna be able to say, okay, day 11 or day 31, you now have to take it down. How this will probably work is 3 months later, they'll probably be notified and say it's 3 months later, you need to take it down. But the reality is whether you select 10 days or 30 days, day 11 or day 31, we're probably not gonna be able to enforce it. Or just to be blunt.
can we use the term substantially completed?
No.
I mean, when, right now, a permit is good for 1 year.
Yeah.
When the work starts.
So, I mean, it might take 6 months to get something done. Or it might take 1 week to get it substantially done, and then you're missing an outlet for 5 months.
Yeah.
I think we should vote on this, Mayor, and then the plan commission.
Okay, any other comments? I know we're trying to get a grasp on this. So we're voting on the amendment to the motion to include the comments as stated. Clerk will call the roll on the amendment to the
And
motion.
the only two comments are with a permit issued and the 10 days. Those are the only,
On site,
and on-site.
on site.
It does kind of say that in there. Signs at new construction sites, remodeling, repairing, or renovation projects, so. Are we,
Are we okay with that? Construction sites.
I just, the point that, Alder Fernler made was all the signs were at the front of
The
the
subdivision.
subdivision for work going on inside.
That wouldn't be allowed under this.
you could switch the word sites to the, after the word projects, signs at new construction, remodeling, repairing, or renovation project sites.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, clerk will call the roll on the amendment.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, the amended motion is approved, and now we're voting on the original motion to, why don't you read the original motion back? Refer it to Plan Commission.
Refer to
I think
Plan
it was that
Commission.
simple.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion on the original motion to refer it to the Plan Commission? Clerk will call the roll.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Good discussion, and I'm sure they'll get our minutes in their packet for discussion as well. Moving on, item 7, the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Anderson. Markham.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Motion approved, thank you. Item 8 isn't needed. Moving on, item 9, committee reports and action. Item A, Finance and Personnel Committee. Discussion and action regarding committee's recommendation to proceed with filling the utilities finance manager position, which will become vacant effective December 13th, 2013. City Administrator Jurgis, do you want to comment on that, and maybe Bill as well? Thank you.
In late September, Howard Bunkert officially submitted his notice that he will be retiring at the end of, or December 13th, 2013. And so that position will be vacant. The Utilities Finance Manager is an important position for the city. One of the long-term goals is to have centralized accounting, and that would still be a goal of the Utilities Finance Manager position. But I'd like to move forward and start the hiring process to recruit his replacement. And then also I would note that at the same time, we are having discussion with Paul Corson and determining what services his firm may or may not be able to perform related to the finance function, because as you know, on the city side, they do act as our basically accountants, and we are going to have that discussion just to verify that whether that option is or is not on the table. And obviously, if something were to materialize there, we'd be bringing that back for more discussion. But at the same time, I don't want to wait on filling that position, because it is an important position. In January, we'll be starting with our audit. Howard's involved with all of the utility building, our billing, all of the accounting work. And so I'd like to move forward and fill that as soon as possible.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to authorize the beginning process of filling the utility finance manager position.
So moved, Alderman Markham. Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Administrator
I
Jurgis?
just wanted to add too, is that the way we will be posting the job is that there will not be a specific posted salary, that we will be asking for salary expectations, and in reviewing the positions, we'll be reviewing the salary requirements, and that's probably something that will also come back to the Common Council to finalize the salary level. And part of the reason is that for that is, he's been there since 1989, and the market may or may not be at where his current salary level is, and so we need to determine where we are in that regard. So I just wanted to make that comment.
I think this is a key position within our structure, and certainly we need to see what comes forward and evaluate it correctly, and I think this is a good decision to start the process. Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll, please.
Nelson.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Williams.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 9B, Public Works and Utilities Committee, discussion and action regarding a shared savings loan for Weber's Family Station LLC at 3250 County PP. Administrator Jurgis, you want to give us a comment on that, please?
Sure, this is the WPPI Shared Savings Loan Program. Our finance policy says it goes to committee prior to the going to the council, and the committee reviewed it tonight. They made a recommendation to extend a shared services loan in the amount of $48,593 to Weber Family Station LLC, and assume a default risk of $31,585, and also require personal guarantees to be signed before or as part of the loan closing. This will result in this, in the utilities accepting 65% of the risk of, in case of default. Usually it's 50/50. But the project is a little bit larger, and as a result, WPPI has indicated they would approve it, but only if we accept 65% of the risk, and they would be on the hook 35%. The difference in the ratios between that and the 50/50 is about $7,000, so I wouldn't consider it significant.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve so we can discuss.
So moved, Alder Anderson. Second, Alder Sidlacha.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? As Mike Peters was here tonight and talked about what WPPI Energy does, this is another example of one of those services that they bring to the table to assist us and our customers in reducing energy costs and a savings across the board. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Item 10, new business. A, discussion and action regarding claim against the city from Jennifer John Batizzi in the amount of $5,763.51. And if I mutilated that name, I apologize in advance. Clerk Huberty, will you read the recommendation from Tom Mann, please?
Tom Mann is in receipt of the above claim that has been filed against the city of Plymouth in the amount of $5,763.51 for damages as a result of a tree branch falling on the claimant's vehicle. The claimant has indicated that she contacted the city in May of 2013 and requested that the city trim the tree, and that the city took no action. It is her contention that had the city taken action, this accident could have been avoided. I have received information from Bill Emick, and he has indicated that the city did receive a call about this tree and did go out and inspect it. When the tree was inspected, there was no outward appearance to indicate that further action was needed, and the city made a decision to not take any further action in this matter. According to Bill Emick, the pictures taken after the accident show that the branch had green, healthy-looking leaves. There were no outward signs that this branch was dead or rotting, and since the leaves on the branch were green and not dead, the city made a decision not to take any action. It is his opinion, Tom Mann's opinion, that the city is immune from liability for this matter as Wisconsin statutes 893.80 parent 4 provides immunity for discretionary actions, and the fact that the city made a determination to not take further action on this tree was a discretionary decision. Since it is my opinion that the city is immune from liability, it would be my recommendation that this claim be denied.
Thank you.
And we do also have a email from the city attorney, Crystal Feber, who agrees with Tom Mann's opinion.
Okay, thank you. Chair will entertain a motion. So we can discuss.
So moved, Alder Williams.
To approve or deny?
To deny.
Deny, thank you.
Second, Alder Sidlacha.
We have a first and a second to deny the claim as presented. Discussion? Alderman Hanson.
I'm going to, in a little bit after my discussion, I'm going to move to refer this, or to lay it on the table. I would talk to Attorney Feber, and we could bring this up in a closed session, the committee of the whole, to discuss this type of issue. So I'm going to be moving, at this time, I move to lay it on the table.
We have a motion to lay this item on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second to lay this item on the table. Clerk will call the roll for laying this item on the table.
Anderson,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Markham,
Yes.
Fernsler,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Sedlacek, Hanson.
Yes.
Motion carried is laid on the table. Thank you very much. Moving on, item B, discussion and action regarding a right-of-way / property transfer with Scott and Norman Rader located on County PP. This was recommended by the Plan Commission on October 3rd. Bill Imig, our Department of Public Works City Engineer, would you like to comment on that in the summary, please?
I believe in 1984, the city sold the property shown on here to Mr. Rader. And at that time, I don't know how this ever got done, but at that time, the city kept 55 feet of right-of-way. And it clearly shows that the property line goes through the building. And Mr. Rader he requested this probably 20 years ago, that we deed enough land so that his building would not be in the road. And nothing ever happened of it. And so he contacted us recently. He's got some health issues and wants to get some items cleared up. And there's no real reason not to deed it over to him. The existing right-of-way on that side of the road is 33 feet. The piece right in front of his property is 55 feet. If we kept 40 feet, that would get the building, if we deeded him the 15 feet, that would get the building on his property. So, Planning Commission recommended that, that we sell 15 feet of property, or will not sell, actually give 15 feet of property to Mr. Rader.
A quitclaim deed, would that be appropriate to refer to that as just a quitclaim deed transaction?
As I understand it, that's how that's what we're contemplating, is that?
Okay,
Yes, and it was my understanding that he would pay the attorney fees to have the deeds drawn up. He's willing to do that if we're willing to sign them at the end of the day. So that's where we are.
okay. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the quitclaim deed as indicated.
So moved, Alder Anderson. Second, Alder Nelson.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Nelson.
Is there any reason why we would still retain more than the 33-foot right-of-way?
No?
Well, the truth is, it never hurts to have a little more extra right-of-way. And there's no reason not to keep it enough so that he gets his building and we get, if we ever widen that road and you have to ditch it or something, then you don't, if you own it, you don't have to go around getting permission from the property owner to do anything, or you're not gonna be buying it back in 10 years, that kind of thing. So just, selling him the minimum amount does make the most sense, because we're not gonna get it so he meets any setback requirements, and so that's why we came up with the 40 feet.
Okay.
Any other comments? Clerk, Attorney Huberty, or Attorney Faber?
This close. I'm gonna go ahead, I think that was me. I think another way to think about it is that it is a 33-foot right-of-way in that area, and the city owns extra. And that's why I think it is appropriate for a quitclaim deed. Otherwise, there is a different procedure that the city would use to discontinue a right-of-way. And so this hasn't been on any maps as extra dedicated right-of-way. This area outside the 33 feet, as I understand it, we don't have a map that shows that this is dedicated right-of-way. So. And we do have this CSM from 1984, which does indicate that it was contemplated at the time that there was going to be some conveyance of the property by deed. And so that's why I do think it's appropriate to convey it by quitclaim deed. But I think another way to think about it is that it's a 33-foot right-of-way and perhaps a county right-of-way, since this is county trunk PP, and that the city just owns some extra property on the side of the road.
Alderman
Hanson.
Alderman Hanson, I was waiting to see if we were gonna get a comment here. Okay, Alderman Hanson.
In the motion, it's mentioned, I would assume that they're gonna pay the fee.
Correct.
So do we have to
The
put that in the
Raiders,
motion, or-
Raiders would pay all costs. I would make one final comment at the Plan Commission. Discussion was also about, do we need county approval and/or comments on that? And basically, the Plan Commission said that's not our problem. If there's a problem with that, the county, you'll have to deal with the county on that on a separate issue, since it is a county PP road. So that just solves that if that comes up. Any other comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Williams.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Fernsler.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Sedlacek.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Motion carried, thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second, Alder Hanson.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.
Sedlacek.